want you to think about this. Is your scarcity mindset holding you back from getting what you want? It might just be. Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Welcome, friends. I am so happy that you made the choice to be here today. I am going to talk about a topic that I have been socializing with friends in team meetings. I was laughing at myself the other day. I was in Philly for a big offsite for a leadership team, and I'd never met them before. And when we were kind of meet and greeting the night before, I realized that I'm pretty intense. I ask a lot about, not about your family, what you did last night, more around what do you need to work on. So the mindset around how you show up is really important. And one of the things I've been talking to people about is scarcity mindset. And I want you to think about this. We often don't name it, but it shows up for us all the time. So a scarcity mindset is having this focus on all of the things that could go wrong or the lack of options that you have. And what happens is it evokes fear and it doesn't allow you to be your best self in looking at the situation from an abundance mindset. So you've heard of that, the abundance mindset. Scarcity mindset limits your thinking. So I want to challenge you to think about this today. And I was looking at some of the myths that we believe about scarcity. And I thought this would be a great place for us to start. One myth is that scarcity just means having less. And scarcity isn't about the lack of money or time or options. It's about how your brain perceives what's missing. That's the big shift, right? It's about the situation may not be scarcity in and of itself, your approach. Scarcity mindset is what we're talking about today. So it shapes the way we react to a situation. There's actually a Harvard economist and a Princeton psychologist that wrote a book about scarcity and why having too little means so much. And they found that it literally tunnels our brain and it reduces our cognitive capacity by 13 IQ points. That's the same hit as if you stayed up all night. So when your mindset goes into this scarcity mode, they're saying you're taking away the energy from your brain to be efficient. You need to be able to think about when you are in this mode of scarcity so that you can be more strategic in those moments. The second myth is scarcity makes you work harder and smarter, meaning like when you're in a scarcity situation, you're better. And we see a lot of pressure right now. So you might think this, you might be hearing a lot. It just makes us better when there's a lot of change, when there's a lot of pressure, because then you get this focus. And it sometimes creates this too narrowing of focus, leading to poor decisions, stress, missed opportunities, because you're just trying to get through it. A study from the University of Chicago found that when people feel financially scarcity, they default to short-term solutions, even when long-term strategies would be better. They borrow more, they make riskier bets, and they avoid investing in their future. When you feel career scarcity, like you're not sure about your job, there's been downsizing, you may be looking too short in the short term, and you might not be looking at how to position yourself in the longer term. We know that when we are feeling threatened in the moment. So seeing ourselves in the scarcity mindset is really powerful to be able to zoom yourself out. And the third myth I want to talk about is that I'll make better decisions when I have more. The truth is more time, more money, more resources alone don't shift your mindset. You're still the same person. You still have the same thinking patterns. If you're stuck in scarcity, you'll keep playing small, even when things improve. There were some studies in behavioral economics that show that people believe they lack control. They undervalue their own options. even when better choices exist. This applies to like salary negotiation, career moves, and high stakes business decisions. So what this means to you is that if you're waiting for more because you can't shift your mindset, you're in a scarcity trap. True abundance isn't about having more. It's about seeing more options and acting accordingly. So it's really shifting your ability to see it from a different lens. It's really a problem for us because it limits our ability to access additional information, options, even just resources. So identifying the scarcity mindset and being able to go, all right, I'm in this right now, will help you make the shifts so that you can move into a growth mindset. You can move into an abundance mindset. And it's all about that shift. It's not the situation we're in. It's really the way that we respond to it. I'll illustrate this for you with a couple stories to give you thinking about how this applies for you. When I first introduced this idea of scarcity, because it is absolutely a negotiation mindset to think about, because as I mentioned about what it does to our ability to think things through, how it zooms us in, it limits our leverage. It allows us to only see a piece of the pie that matters to us. And instead, when we are able to zoom out and view it from a broader view, we're able to shift our reaction to. And I think a great example is imagine, and maybe this is just true for you right now. So imagine you work for a great boss, you're compensated well, you love your colleagues, you just love what you do. And you're just zooming along, doing your thing, and you get a call from a recruiter out of the blue, make you a job offer, company that you really have been watching, you like, you respect, and you think, well, I'm really happy where I am. I'll go for the moon. So you ask for double what you make. You ask for additional vacation and a bigger package that expands the options that you have. You are in an abundance mindset. Scarcity is low. Emotions are low. You have options, AKA BATNA, the best alternative to negotiating agreement. This is a foundational piece of scarcity. When you have options, you have an abundance mindset. There are things you can do. If it doesn't work out, then you have these other things. It allows you, your mindset, to see it from that perspective. Because if you don't get the job, no harm, no foul. You just keep doing what you're doing and you love what you do. But if you go to a different situation and say you were let go from your company, you were out of work for 6 months, you are the sole breadwinner, and you keep putting your resume out there, but you hear nothing. You just are feeling depleted and lack of confidence. And somebody calls you and says, here's a job. It's less than what you were making before. It's with a company that you don't agree with their mission. You're more likely to say yes, even though the package isn't good, because you don't have another option. You know, a walkaway strategy is about having a place where you can go to. That's a scarcity mindset. You are so focused on this one opportunity. It's the only thing I have. I have to say yes because you haven't had a lot of opportunities around you. So that's a scarcity mindset. Just the situation you're in, and you may look at it that way, but you have the choice to make that change in the way you view it. And it could be as simple as continuing to network so that you know that you are talking to more people and there are opportunities in different companies. Even if something is not posted, having some of these other things that are in motion make you feel less vulnerable to having to say yes to something that isn't in a place that you want it to be. Thinking about what do you do to shift that mindset is the key. When I think about a client of mine and how this showed up in just a regular day-to-day professional example. So Lori was working on a big project that was essential to the customer experience within the organization that she was in. And she had a team. It wasn't just her team. It was people from all across the organization that worked on this project together. And it was a really big deal, had high exposure within the company, and the team was really gelling, working really well together. And they were super excited about being able to roll this out. It was going to take a long time to do because it was very complex. Well, lo and behold, one day her boss came to her and said, "We've pulled funding for this project." And Lori went into a spiral of, how could they do this? There's nothing we can do about it. What are these people going to do? Really a negative, fixed mindset around, there's nothing we can do about it. And she just really was inhibiting her from being able to expand that view, being able to see what is possible. And so she felt really disappointed, powerless, really mad, out of control. It really impacted her influence because senior leaders saw how she was reacting in these moments, and that created a brand that changed her brand in the organization about her ability to respond in the right way. So you get in a scarcity mindset, it can have a broader impact than just that situation. But just imagine, had her response been different to that same situation, thinking of herself as the leader, not of just her team, but that broader group. Her reaction was important for them to learn how they need to respond to future things that are bumps in the road, instead of really getting in that scarcity mindset. Just think if she would have leveraged her team's work to pivot to another project, really looked at what are the other opportunities within the organization that we can plug into. Even having a conversation when that was going on and say, okay, thank you for letting me know. That's really disappointing. I'm going to need some time to unplug. But while I'm doing that, what can we do as a leadership team to get this team on something else so we don't lose the momentum of us working together? She could have, instead of retreating, demonstrated this ability to think strategically and illustrated this, not just that to that team, because she had their backs too, but how can she expand that optics of her and really frame this problem in a way? That's what senior leaders look for when they're looking to advance somebody, are those moments when the pressure is really high. How do they react? This scarcity mindset is something that affects us in an emotional way. It zooms us in to not seeing all the possibilities. As you go up in the organization, scarcity mindset is not tolerated because great leaders are able to identify quickly when that's going to happen, so it doesn't hijack them, get in their way, and be able to expand that so that they can lead through that. Because leadership and negotiation isn't just about getting that deal. It's what you're going to do with the relationship afterwards. So seeing your scarcity mindset and working through that and seeing where this might be getting in your way now. And even if it's low stakes, it's not a high exposure project like Lori was facing, even those demonstrating those in those scarcity moments that doesn't have as much visibility will give you the muscle to be able to identify and make the shifts you need to quickly. I'll give you a couple tips to be thinking about, and think about where you can apply this, where this scarcity mindset is getting in your way right now. It's tip time. I have been really thoughtful about this whole scarcity mindset because, as I mentioned, the fixed versus growth mindset, abundance mindset, all of these aspects are tied together with scarcity. And so it's important to think about where this is affecting you. And I gave you two examples that are pretty extreme examples to really illustrate my point. I want you to look for evidence of this in your everyday because it is showing up. It's narrowing your thinking. So when you look at these tips, think about in your personal life, in your professional life, maybe it's a high stakes situation that you've deemed that, and look at what is impeding you from looking at it broader. So that actually is the first tip, to recognize the triggers. Scarcity doesn't just show up with a big project or that job example that I gave to you. It happens all the time. One example is your boss suddenly starts being pretty critical of you, or a project didn't go well and now kind of your boss has lost confidence in your abilities. You may not understand that there's some backstory things, like maybe he's under pressure or she's under pressure from their boss. Maybe there's some other home life things that are causing stress for them, but you see it only as it relates to you. So you associate that reaction that that person has to the direct correlation to what happened to you. And so what happens then is you think that that tension is just yours. So you might not question, you may not push back, you may not just move forward, you may ask for permission too much. It will exacerbate the problem. So being able to recognize your triggers, and when you become in a scarcity mindset, can allow you to zoom out to understand and maybe get advice from other people so that you can see it broader if you need to. Maybe it is just you, but make sure you don't make that assumption, because that assumption comes when you are in a scarcity mindset. So start asking yourself, am I reacting out of fear, or am I considering all the options here? What are all the things that are in play? So that's the first one, recognizing your triggers. The second one is expand before you narrow. So when you're making decisions, what you want to do first is you expand your thinking. What are all the options? What are all the possibilities have I considered? Who else can I bring in here? What else can I do to force myself to think broader, think outside the box? And then once you have the right direction, then you want to narrow. That's being strategic. You want to narrow in on that best possible outcome so that you maneuver smartly, strategically. Scarcity narrows us first. Abundance expands us first. So really understanding that you need to expand the options in order to get narrowed to deliver from there. So that's the second one, expand before you narrow. And then the third is anchoring your position in advance. So this is really getting buy-in before. This has a little bit to do with influence, helping people see your value, the team's value, being able to kind of be the PR for the project. So often people are so focused on the deliverables, but who else outside the room needs to know about this? Who needs to support it in non-direct ways, even having some optics that they know it's going on, so that when those budgets are talked about, there's some context to the people around the room. When you're smart politically about getting the information to people, they're more likely to help you because you've given them the context. So taking the time to pull people in, planting seeds, helping people understand what you're working on, why it's important to the business, what are going to be the outcomes, how is it going to affect them? Bringing in and influencing along the way will allow you to see it from a lot of different views. And when those moments happen where that budget is pulled, you have some allies on the outside that you can gain some perspective from, some advice, even some leverage to maybe get some of that back. So start asking yourself, am I showing up in the big moments, and am I building along the way? Getting those people that need to be a part of the process. Do you know that people are 5 times more likely to be bought in if they feel a part of the process along the way? It doesn't mean they need to be invited to every meeting, but in order to get buy-in across the organization, thinking about who needs to be involved. What do they need to know? What's important to them and how this specific thing is going to affect them? How do you need to do that? So what is coming up for you? What situation are you facing coming up for you? Maybe it's a high stakes situation that you want to consider. And you want to think about, I need to recognize my triggers when I'm getting involved in this. How am I going to be most successful? thinking about expanding before you narrow, getting that growth mindset first so you can really look at all the options and then think about your strategic approach. And then who do you need to bring in? Who do you need to influence? Who do you need to anchor where this is going? Be proactive about that. Great leaders understand who needs to be involved, and they understand that the politics within the organization are about getting things done and building influence together to create bigger impact. Think about the past. When has a scarcity mindset gotten in your way? Looking back and reflecting, what's powerful about that is so often if we're far enough from it, we're not hijacked by the emotions. We're not pulled back in by the emotions. So you can look at a situation with more objectivity. So when has this gotten in your way? And what would you have done differently? What are 3 things you could have done better? What are 3 things that you would do differently? When you think about something that's coming up for you, what are you going to do in that moment to make sure that if you get into a scarcity mindset, what are you going to do to adjust? So my question really is, where is scarcity showing up in your life and holding you back? How is it keeping you from asking, from negotiating, from providing your input, for giving feedback, or even just stepping in to get what you want? And then what's one move you can make today to shift your mindset around that? So you're not looking at it from a zoomed in view. How can you look at it from a bigger view? Scarcity mindset is a powerful thing to consider. And so often when we are stuck in scarcity, we are overwhelmed by emotion. And when that happens, we don't see it clearly about our options. It's hard in scarcity mindset to zoom out because those emotions want us so badly to focus in on dwelling on why it won't work or in a fixed mindset. And making that shift allows you to think broader. So those emotions can inhibit us and keep us stuck. Every time you face a high stakes situation, conversation, whether it is negotiating a job, advocating for resources, or even leading a tough meeting, think about, are you reacting from fear or are you creating options? Are you narrowing too early or are you expanding enough before you decide? And are you waiting for permission or anchoring your value consistently? I would love to hear how scarcity mindset has gotten in your way and what you've done, what shift you've done. What have you put in place today? Love to hear from you. I always want people to be able to negotiate from whatever position they're in from a place of strength. And the way to do that is to be able to be so self-aware that you know what's getting in your way. If you love this podcast, join me and sign up for my newsletter where I share even more about my tips and share a little bit about my personal stories that are going on in my real life. Go to negotiationlove.com and sign up there and shoot me a note. Tell me how you use this. And remember, negotiation is more than a skill. It is truly a mindset. Until next time.